Hey, you guys, it's David, um, and I'm back. I missed yesterday. It was just kind of a crazy day, and I was actually here at my shop by myself all day, so it was hard to sit down and do this yesterday. So I missed you guys and thought about even doing it later. And so, what are we doing? We're reading Eckhart Tolle's book, right? And we're reading The Power of Now. The Power of Now. Yes. And I know it's kind of elusive because for the most part we think we're here. We think that this is life, and until you've really had an experience of presence, of surrender, of the bliss of the moment, it's hard to even describe. Well, actually, even after after we've had the experience of the moment, it's hard to describe. Hi there. So, but I think that reading Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, helps us to even contemplate the possibility that there's something more than what we're perceiving. And from that contemplation of the possibility can come an awakening, can come a curiousness, a wanting to awaken. And so yeah, and so why am I reading this? Because I think that it also selfishly helps me with my awakening, and because the ego is very cunning. It wants to run the show. Ego says, everything's okay. I got it, David. I got it. And it's very cunning and kind of, tricky. Ego can be tricky. Hey, Aaron, we're just talking about ego. And so it's impossible to, it seems impossible to come against the ego, because coming against the ego only strengthens it. And so if we're able to surrender to the possibility. Hello, Maria. Thanks for dropping in. Great to see you again. So we're talking about, a bit about, before I read today, just a little bit about, what's the possibility. And so the possibility is to know a peace, to know a something beyond the struggle of life, if you will. And not that there's anything wrong with anything. Not that there's that the struggle of life isn't perfect. Of course it is. It's just that some of us have awakened to the point where we know there's something else, and so we're looking in a way for what is that something else. How can I live in a state of continuous contentment, continuous acceptance, continuous gratitude, and ego will say, that's bullshit. There's no such thing as continuous gratitude. Well, I think there is. I think we can live in gratitude and love and be aware of when the mind comes in and says, oh yeah, but look out for this. Oh yeah, but what about that? And because the mind, and I don't know about you guys, but we've given it control, for many years, and We were taught, many of us, that we had to live in fear, that we had to, this was a scary place. And so I think that I'm reading this for those of you and me, for sure, who want to be reminded over and over again that there is more, that there is possibilities, that there is an opportunity to move into a higher vibration, to make a difference on the planet. Some of you know I read Dr. David Hawkins' book recently online like this, and Hawkins has a scale, a vibrational scale, and with the vibrational scale you can kind of see, I mean, the scale doesn't really mean anything except that it measures vibration using kinesiology. It's amazing. If you haven't heard of David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins, his first book was Power versus Force, and it's great for the mind loves to kind of get this and say, oh wow, okay, so if I'm in fear, I'm in a low vibration. If I'm in guilt and shame, I'm in a low vibration, and that if I'm in acceptance, if I'm in gratitude, if I'm in love, if I'm in courage, I'm in higher vibrations, and joy, or they're higher vibrations, and bliss. So ecstatic type of possibilities of having the most amazing ride while we're here. I mean, here we are on spaceship Earth, in these amazing bodies, these spiritual beings, kind of, in a way, we've gotten trapped in these little bodies, thinking that we're the center of the universe, and instead of that, we're part of everything. We're the same as the air. We're the same as the light. We are light, but we've gotten pretty dense. But as we get higher vibration, we see that we can we can really recognize that we are one with everything, and that's what Eckhart Tolle writes about. He's an amazing emissary for awakening. And so I'm going to read a little bit. And, if you're going through tough times, if you have some struggles, remember that maybe you asked for them. Maybe they're all part of waking up, all part of surrender. And because it seems that without surrender, without turning it all over, without saying, thank you, God, and take me completely, we don't seem to be able to. We're still holding on to control. Well, we're kind of fucked. And but there's a mixed message, because often we're saying, I want to surrender. Please help me to surrender, and then we're hanging on, and at the same time, and so that struggle can show itself in our body. It can show itself in our thoughts. Yeah. Anyway, it's just some of my stuff. I hate peanuts. I just finished a handful of peanuts, and the truth is, and this is crazy, I'm kind of allergic to peanuts. I love peanuts, but I'm kind of allergic to them. And I know, isn't that crazy? And peanuts are not the only thing that I sometimes do that are not good for me, but I really like them. Anyway, here we go. We're on chapter 3, page 47, chapter 3, Eckhart Tolle, and we're going to, I'm going to read. I'm going to see if I can read a lot of this chapter today. What time is it? It's 12:13. 12:13. What does 12:13 mean? Nothing. Means nothing. Hey, Carrie. I love you too. Awesome. Isn't it funny? I was sharing with a friend a few minutes ago that our minds are magical meaning-making machines. We're always assessing meaning. We're always judging, because the bird flew over and there was a cloud and the cloud looked like, and we think, oh, what does that mean? Or somebody came through the door at 11:11. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. Magical meaning-making machines. Anyway, here we go. Chapter 3. moving deeply into the now. Nice. The subtitle is Don't Seek Yourself in the Mind. I feel that there is still a great deal, it's a question a student's asking him, I feel there's still a great deal I need to learn about the workings of my mind before I can get anywhere near full consciousness or spiritual enlightenment, she's saying. Hey, Kari, thank you. And, okay, so I feel that the student, the format of his book is that it's questions and he answers them, and it's pretty sweetly done. I feel there is still a great deal I need to learn about the workings of my mind, she says, the student, before I can get anywhere near full consciousness or spiritual enlightenment. He says, Eckhart Tolle says, no, you don't. The problems of the mind cannot be solved on the level of the mind. Once you have understood the basic dysfunction, there isn't really much else that you need to learn or understand. Studying the complexities of the mind may make you a good psychologist, but doing so won't take you beyond the mind. Just as the study of madness isn't enough to create sanity. You have already understood the basic mechanics of the unconscious state, identification with the mind, which creates a false self. Identification with the mind, which creates a false self, the ego, is a substitute for your true self rooted in being. You become a branch cut off from the vine, as Jesus put it. You become a branch cut off from the vine. When my kids were little, I taught them that we were like we're all like laptops cut off from the mainframe. You know, that we had an operating system and we had a lot of information in it, but it wasn't enough because we were disconnected from the mainframe. And they kind of like that. And that's how, basically, he's saying the same thing. A branch cut off from the vine. The ego's needs are endless. It feels vulnerable and threatened, and so lives in a state of fear and want. Once you know how the basic how the basic dysfunction operates, there is no need to explore all its countless manifestations. No need to make it into a complex personal problem. The ego, of course, loves that. It is always seeking for something to attach itself to in order to uphold and strengthen its illusionary sense of self. And it will readily attach itself to your problems. That is why, for so many people, a large part of their sense of self is intimately connected to their problems. It's so clear when we meet somebody and the first thing they want to talk about is their problems, because they're identified. That's who they are. This is why, for so many people, a large part of their sense of self is intimately connected with their problems. Once this has happened, the last thing they want is to become free of them. That would mean loss of self. There can be a great deal of unconscious ego investment in pain and suffering. Michelle, yeah. Will you ask him to close the door? Yeah. Thanks, love. I have a friend in the back. His name is Aman, A-M-A-N. He's Aman, and he's sanding one of my tables back there. He's a beautiful guy. Anyway, where was I? And then it becomes egoic mind and takes over your whole life. That's the deal. Okay, next subtitle, End the Delusion of Time. It seems almost impossible to disidentify with the mind. We're all immersed in it. How do you teach a fish to fly? Here's the key. End the delusion of time. Time and mind are inseparable. Remove time from the mind and it stops unless you choose to use it. Wow, that's the beauty of being in the now. To identify with your mind is to be trapped in time. The compulsion to live almost exclusively through memory and anticipation. This creates an endless preoccupation with past and future, and an unwillingness to honor and acknowledge the present moment and allow it to be. This creates an endless preoccupation with past and future, and an unwillingness to honor and acknowledge the present moment and allow it to be. The compulsion arises because the past gives you an identity, and the future holds the promise of salvation. It's my bulletproof coffee. I go to my local coffee shop in Calgary called Cafe Bino, and I get a couple of Americanos and to-go cups, and then I bring them home to the store, and I put them in a blender, and I add MCT oil and grass-fed butter and a little turmeric and some collagen and a little honey, and I blend it up. Oh, it's such a great coffee. Anyway, that's what I drink. I just want to share that with you. Not that it means anything. Okay, past gives you identity, and the future holds the promise of salvation, a fulfillment in whatever form. Both are illusions. I think he's going to remind us of this every single paragraph, every page. He'll bring us back to the now. Here's the next question. But without a sense of time, how would we function in this world? There would be no goals to strive towards anymore. I wouldn't even know who I am, because my past makes me who I am today. I think time is something very precious, and we need to learn to use it wisely rather than waste it. And then he says, time isn't precious at all, because it is an illusion. What you perceive as precious is not time, but the one point that is out of time, the now. This is precious indeed. The more you are focused on time, past and future, the more you miss the now, the most precious thing there is. Why is it the most precious thing? Firstly, because it is the only thing. It's all there is. The eternal present is the space within which your whole life unfolds. The one factor that remains constant. Life is now. There is never a time when your life is not now, nor will there ever be. Secondly, the now is the only point that can take you beyond the limited confines of your mind. It is the only point of access into the timeless and formless realm of being. Wow! Now is the doorway into everything, to the gift. That's so cool. For those of you who just dropped in, I'm reading Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Beautiful book. And I'm going to spin through it. It might take a little bit. Formless realm of being. Another subtitle, Nothing Exists Outside the Now. This is the first question. Aren't past and future just as real, sometimes even more real than the present? After all, the past determines who we are, as well as how we perceive and behave in the present. And our future goals determine which actions we take in the present. That's a student saying. Eckhart replies, you haven't yet grasped the essence of what I am saying, because you are trying to understand it mentally. The mind cannot understand it. Only you can. Please just listen. Have you ever experienced, done, thought, or felt anything outside the now? Do you think you ever will? Is it possible for anything to happen or be outside the now? The answer is obvious. It is not possible. Nothing ever happened in the past. It happened in the now. Nothing will ever happen in the future. It will happen in the now. What you think of as the past is a memory trace stored in your mind of a former now. When you remember the past, you reactivate a memory trace, and you do so now. The future is an image now, a projection of the mind. When the future comes, it comes as the now. Cool, eh? Cool. It comes as the now. when you think about the future, past and future obviously have no reality of their own, just as the moon has no light of its own, but can only reflect the light of the sun. So are the past and future only pale reflections of the light, power, and reality of the eternal present. Their reality is borrowed from the now. The essence of what I am saying here cannot be understood by the mind. The moment you grasp it, there is a shift in consciousness from mind to being, from time to presence. Suddenly, everything feels alive, radiant, and radiant energy emits being. Another subtitle, page 51, The Key to the Spiritual Dimension. In life-threatening emergency situations, the shift in consciousness from time to presence sometimes happens naturally. The personality that has a past and a future momentarily recedes and is replaced by an intense conscious presence, very still but very alert. Hi, Krista. Thanks for dropping in. Very still but very alert at the same time. Whatever response is needed then arises out of that state of consciousness. The reason why so many people love to engage in dangerous activities, such as mountain climbing, car racing, and so on, although they may not be aware of it, is that it forces them into the now. Isn't that beautiful? That intensely alive state that is free of time, free of problems, free of thinking, free of the burden of personality. Slipping away from the present moment, even for a second, may mean death. Unfortunately, they come to depend on a particular activity to be in that state. But you don't need to climb the north face of the Eiger, E-I-G-E-R, must be a mountain that I don't know about. You can enter the state now. Right. That's why I'm big on meditation, because meditation can be the doorway into the moment, right? Gratitude can be the doorway into the moment. Prayer, beseeching the moment, because who are we talking to? We're talking to the moment, talking to now. And since ancient times, spiritual masters of all traditions have pointed to the now as the key to the spiritual dimension. Despite this, it seems to have remained a secret. Imagine. It is certainly not taught in churches and temples. You go to church, you may hear readings from the Gospels, and such as, "Take no thought of the morrow, for the morrow shall take thought of the things of itself." Or, "Nobody who puts his hands on the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." Oh, nobody who puts his hands on the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Or you might hear the passage about the beautiful flowers that are not anxious about tomorrow, but live with ease in the timeless now, and provided for abundantly by God. The depth and radical nature of these teachings are not recognized. No one seems to realize that they are meant to be lived, and so being about a profound inner transformation. Cool, eh? The whole essence of Zen consists in walking along the razor's edge of now. To be utterly, so completely present that no problem, no suffering, nothing that is not who you are in your essence can survive in you. In the now, in the absence of time, all your problems dissolve. Suffering needs time. It cannot survive in the now. Cool, eh? The great Zen master Rinzhi, in order to take his students' attention away from time, would often raise his finger and slowly ask, "What at this moment is lacking?" A powerful question that does not require an answer on the level of the mind. It is designed to take your attention deeply into the now. A similar question in the Zen tradition is, if not now, when? A similar question in the Zen tradition is, If not now, when? The now is also central to the teachings of Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam. Sufis have a saying: the Sufi is the son of time present. And Rumi, the great poet and teacher of Sufism, declares, past and future veil God from your sight. Burn up both of them with fire. Meister Eckhart, the 13th century spiritual teacher, summed it all up beautifully. Time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There's no greater obstacle to God than time. Accessing the Power of Now, page 53. Well, it looks like a long question first. A moment ago, when you talked about the eternal present and the unreality of past and future, I found myself looking at that tree outside the window. I had looked at it a few times before, but this time it was different. The external perception had not changed much, except that the colors seemed brighter and more vivid. But there was now an added dimension to it. It's hard to explain. I don't know how, but I was aware of something invisible that I felt was the essence of that tree, its inner spirit, if you like. And somehow I was part of that. I realize now that I hadn't truly seen the tree before, just a flat and dead image of it. When I look at the tree now, some of that awareness is still present, but I can feel it slipping away. You see, the experience is already receded into the past. Can something like this ever be more than a fleeting glimpse? Good question. He says, you were free of time for a moment. You moved into the now and therefore perceived the tree without the screen of mind. The awareness of being became part of your perception. The awareness of being became part of your perception. With the timeless dimension comes a different kind of knowing, one that does not kill the spirit that lives within every creature and everything. A knowing that does not destroy the sacredness and mystery of life, but contains a deep love and reverence for all that is, a knowing of which the mind knows nothing. The mind cannot know the tree. It can only know facts or information about the tree. The mind cannot know you, only labels and judgments and facts and opinions about you. Being alone knows directly. There is a place for mind and mind knowledge. It is in the practical realm of the day-to-day living. However, when it takes over all aspects of your life, including your relationships with other human beings and with nature, it becomes a monstrous parasite that, unchecked, may well end up killing all life on the planet, and finally itself by killing its host. You have had a glimpse of how the timeless can transform your perceptions, but an experience is not enough. No matter how beautiful or profound it is needed, what is needed and what we are concerned with is a permanent shift in consciousness. Ta-da! Nice, eh? So break the old pattern of present moment denial and present moment resistance. Make it your practice to withdraw attention from past and future whenever they are not needed. Step out of the time dimension as much as possible in everyday life. You find it hard to enter the now directly, start by observing the habitual tendencies of your mind to want to escape from the now. You will observe that the future is usually imaged as either better or worse than the present. Interesting. Better or worse than the present. Thanks for dropping in, you guys. We're reading The Power of Now. And, wow. It's pretty cool. If the image future is better, it gives you hope or pleasurable anticipation. If it is worse, it creates anxiety. So we create it all with our mind, our imagination. Creates anxiety. Both are illusionary. Though through self-observation, more presence comes into your life automatically. The moment you realize you're not present, you are present. Whenever you're able to observe your mind, you're no longer trapped in it. Another factor has come in. Something that is not of the mind, the witnessing presence. The witness. That's, so such a beautiful part of meditation is to become, conscious of the witness. And the witness is then conscious of the mind. And we recognize that the mind, and the mind does have a job. I don't think we need to come up against the mind, just to be aware of it and move into the now. Be present as the watcher of your mind, of your thoughts and emotions, as well as your reaction in various situations. Be at least as interested in your reactions as in the situation. Be at least as interested in your reactions as in the situation or person that causes you to react. Notice also how often your attention is in the past or future. Don't judge or analyze what you observe. Watch the thought, feel the emotion, observe the reaction. Don't make a personal problem out of them. You will then feel something more powerful than any of those things that you observe. The still, observing presence itself beyond the content of the mind, the silent watcher. The still, observing presence itself beyond the content of your mind, the silent watcher. Oh, Marie, you're leaving us. Okay, love. You can read this, or you can listen to this later if you like. Just for those of you that are here for the first time, we've been posting these on Instagram, AGTV, and also they're posted on Facebook, and you can go back and I think this is number 5, and you can listen to the other ones if you'd like. Up to you. And I hope you don't mind that I'm reading and it comes with my commentary, and hopefully that adds something, and whatever. Okay. Intense presence is needed when certain situations trigger a reaction with a strong emotional charge, such as when your self-image is threatened, a challenge comes into your life that triggers fear, or things go wrong, or the emotional complex from the past is brought up, or an emotional complex from the past is brought up. In these instances, the tendency is for you to become unconscious. Imagine. The reaction or emotion takes you over, and you become it. You act it out. You justify, make wrong, attack, defend. Accept that it isn't you. Accept that it isn't you. It's the reactive pattern, the mind in its habitual survival mode. Ha-ha. Identification with the mind gives it more energy. Observation of the mind withdraws energy from it. Identification with the mind creates more time. Observation of the mind opens up the dimension of the timeless. Really, the energy that is withdrawn from the mind turns into presence. Once you can feel what it means to be present, it becomes much easier to simply choose to step out of the time dimension. I'm going to read that again. The energy that is withdrawn from the mind turns into presence. Once you can feel what it means to be present, it becomes much easier to simply choose to step out of the time dimension whenever time is not needed for practical purposes, and move more deeply into the now. This does not impair your ability to use time. past or future, when you need to refer to it for practical matters. Nor does it impair your ability to use your mind. In fact, it enhances it. When you do not use your mind, it will be sharper. When you do use your mind, it will be sharper, more focused. Isn't that cool? Let me see, I'm on page 56. Where did I start? I'm going to read a little bit more. What time is it? Oh yeah, I'll read a few more minutes. Next subtitle is Letting Go of Psychological Time. Learn to use time in the practical aspects of your life. We call this clock time. But immediately return to present moment awareness when these practical matters have been dealt with. In this way, there will be no buildup of psychological time, which is identification with the past and continuous compulsive projection into the future. Clock time is not just making an appointment or planning a trip. It includes learning from the past so we don't repeat the same mistakes over and over. Setting goals and working towards them, predicting the future by means of patterns and laws and physical and mathematical and so on. Learn from the past and taking appropriate action on the basis of these predictions. Let me read that paragraph again. Clock time is not just making an appointment or planning a trip. It includes learning from the past so that we don't repeat the same mistakes over and over. It also includes setting goals and working toward them. It includes predicting the future by means of patterns and laws and physical and mathematical and so on. Learn from the past and taking appropriate action on the basis of our predictions. Okay. But even here, within the sphere of practical living, where we cannot do without reference to past and future, the present moment remains the essential factor. Any lesson from the past becomes relevant and is applied now. Any planning, as well as working towards achieving a particular goal, is done in the now. The enlightened person's main focus of attention is always the now, but they are still peripherally aware of time. In other words, they continue to use clock time, but are free of psychological time. Be alert as you practice this so that you do not unwittingly transform clock time into psychological time. Like that, eh? For example, if you make a mistake in the past and learn from it now, you're using clock time. On the other hand, if you dwell on it mentally and when self-criticism, remorse, or guilt, and self-criticism or remorse or guilt come up, then you are making the mistake into me and mine. You make it part of your sense of self and has become psychological time, which is always linked to a false sense of identity. Non-forgiveness necessarily implies a heavy burden of psychological time. If you set yourself a goal and work toward it, you are using clock time. You are aware of where you want to go, but you honor and give your fullest attention to the step that you are on, that you're taking it in this moment. If you then become excessively focused on the goal, perhaps because you are seeking happiness or fulfillment or a more complete sense of self in it, the now is no longer honored. It becomes reduced to a mere stepping stone to the future with no intrinsic value. Clock time then turns into psychological time, and your life's journey is no longer an adventure, just an obsessive need to arrive, to attain, to make it. You no longer see or smell the flowers by the wayside either, nor are you aware of the beauty and the miracle of life that unfolds all around you. when you are present in the now. Another question. I love these questions. I can see the supreme importance of the now, but I cannot quite go along with you when you say that time is a complete illusion. When I say time is an illusion, my intention is not to make a psychological statement. I'm just reminding you of a simple fact. A fact so obvious that you may find it hard to grasp and may even find it meaningless. But once fully realized, you can cut like a sword through all the mind-created layers of complexities and problems. Let me say it again. The present moment is all you ever have. There is never a time when your life is not this moment. It is not. Is this not a fact? So I think that's it for today, you guys. I've read, 13 or 14 pages, not a lot, but well into chapter 3. We'll continue in the near future. Hopefully tomorrow on Saturday I'll read for another hour or so. Love you guys. Thanks for letting me do this. Thanks for watching, and we'll chat really, really soon. Okay. All right. So remember, be here now.